I opened my eyes to the sound of my ex-wife screaming at me, and I knew exactly what she was about to say. "You're being selfish, David. Melissa needs this opportunity. She's been accepted to Stanford. Stanford. And you're going to let your pride ruin her future?" The kitchen of our Denver townhouse looked exactly as I remembered. Same chipped Formica countertops. Same crooked calendar on the wall showing March 2019. Same sense of suffocating dread in my chest, except this time I knew how the story ended. I'd lived this moment before. 5 years ago, or 5 years from now, depending on how you counted, I'd caved to Jennifer's demands. I'd transferred my post-9/11 GI Bill benefits to her daughter Melissa, the stepdaughter who'd never called me anything but that guy Mom married. I'd signed away the educational benefits I'd earned through 4 years in the Marines, 2 tours in Afghanistan, and a piece of shrapnel still lodged near my spine that set off metal detectors. In my first life, I'd told myself it was the right thing to do. Jennifer had cried. Her mother had called me heartless. Melissa had looked at me with those cold blue eyes and said, "I guess I'll just work at Walmart forever then." So I'd done it. I'd transferred the benefits. And then I'd watch my marriage crumble anyway when Jennifer filed for divorce 6 months later, the day after Melissa's first semester tuition was locked in. I'd watched Melissa graduate from Stanford without inviting me to the ceremony. I'd watched her land a 6-figure tech job and never once acknowledged the sacrifice I'd made. And I died alone in a VA hospital at 47. My own dreams of finishing my engineering degree abandoned. My body broken from years of construction work that my back couldn't handle. My mind shattered by PTSD I'd never had the time or money to properly treat. But something had happened as I'd lain there dying. Some cosmic glitch, some unexplained mercy, some force I didn't understand had given me a second chance. I'd woken up here. March 15th, 2019. The day Jennifer had launched her campaign to steal my future. "David!" Jennifer snapped her fingers in front of my face. Are you even listening to me?" I looked at my wife. She was 39, carefully maintained blonde hair, yoga-toned body, and a master manipulator's instinct for finding pressure points. In my first life, I'd loved her desperately. Now I saw her clearly. A woman who'd married a disabled veteran for the benefits and stability, not for love. "I'm listening," I said calmly. "Then you understand why this is important. Melissa is family. You said when we got married that you'd treat her like your own daughter." Melissa sat at the kitchen table behind her mother, scrolling through her phone with studied disinterest. She was 19, pretty in that Instagram-filtered way, and had her mother's talent for weaponized victimhood. She didn't even look up. "I also said I'd use my GI Bill to finish my degree," I replied. "I only have 3 years of eligibility left. I need—" "You're 37 years old," Jennifer cut me off. "You've had plenty of time to go back to school. Melissa's window is now. Stanford won't wait." "Neither will my spine," I said quietly. "The doctor said I've got maybe 5 more years before the deterioration." "You're always complaining about your back," Melissa muttered, still not looking up from her phone. "It's not even that bad." In my first life, that comment had shattered something inside me. I'd wanted so badly to be accepted by this girl, to prove I was worthy of being in her life. I'd swallowed the insult. This time, I felt nothing but cold clarity. "Jennifer, I'm not transferring my benefits," I said. The room went silent. Jennifer's face transformed from frustration to shock to calculated fury in the span of 3 seconds. "Excuse me." I said no. I'm using my GI Bill for myself. I'm enrolling at University of Colorado this fall. I've already decided. This was a lie. In my first life, I'd vaguely planned to eventually go back to school, but I'd never taken concrete steps. This time would be different. This time, I knew exactly what I was doing. "You selfish bastard." Jennifer's voice went dangerously quiet. "After everything I've done for you, after I've stood by you through your nightmares, your mood swings, your disabilities? You mean after you married me for my disability check and my health insurance?" I said. It felt like lancing a boil, painful but necessary. Melissa finally looked up from her phone, eyes wide. Jennifer's face went white, then red. "How dare you?" "I dare because it's true." I stood up from the table and my back screamed in protest, but I kept my face neutral. I'm going for a walk. When I get back, I expect you both to be civil. We can discuss this like adults, or we can discuss it through lawyers. Your choice. I grabbed my jacket and walked out, leaving them both staring. The cold March air hit my face and I started shaking. Not from fear, from relief. I'd done it. I'd said no. In my first life, I'd never had the courage. I walked to the park 2 blocks away and sat on a bench, pulling out my phone. I had a lot to do. In my first life, I'd been ignorant of how the GI Bill actually worked, how the transfer process had loopholes, how Jennifer and Melissa had committed fraud that I'd been too trusting to notice. This time, I knew everything. Because in my first life, after Jennifer divorced me and I'd struggled through years of poverty, I'd finally filed a complaint with the VA. I'd discovered that Jennifer had forged my signature on multiple forms, that Melissa had claimed I was her biological father on her applications when I'd only been in her life for 3 years, that they'd lied about her dependency status, that they'd used benefits she wasn't entitled to. The VA investigation had started just before I died. I'd never seen the resolution, but I remembered the investigator's name. Sarah Chen. I remembered the case number. I remembered every detail of the fraud. And this time, I wasn't going to wait until after I'd already been victimized. This time, I was going to let them commit the fraud exactly as they'd planned, but I'd be ready. I pulled up my email and started composing a message to myself. Documentation. I needed documentation of everything. Every conversation, every text, every form. I needed to build a case that was absolutely airtight. My phone buzzed. Jennifer, we need to talk. Come home. I didn't respond. Let her sweat. Another buzz. Melissa this time. You're really going to ruin my life over this? I stared at that message for a long moment. In my first life, this exact text had made me drive home immediately and apologize. I'd felt guilty. I'd been the adult, and she'd been just a kid with dreams. This time, I knew better. Melissa was 19, legally an adult, and fully complicit in her mother's schemes. In my original timeline, she'd laughed about me at Stanford parties. I knew because I'd seen the videos posted by her friends, videos where she'd called me Mom's meal ticket and joked about how easy it had been to manipulate the jarhead. I blocked her number. Then I made a call to someone I'd met at a VA support group in my first life, Marcus Webb, a paralegal who specialized in veterans benefits law. Marcus, this is David Torres. We met at the Denver VA group. Yeah, that's right. Listen, I need some legal advice. Hypothetically, if someone tried to fraudulently use a veteran's transferred GI Bill benefits, what would be the best way to document that for a VA investigation? Marcus was quiet for a moment. That's a very specific hypothetical, David. I know. Are you in trouble? Not yet. But I might be if I don't handle this right. Okay. First, understand that GI Bill fraud is a federal crime. If you have evidence someone's trying to defraud the VA, you need to report it immediately. But you need solid documentation. I listened carefully as Marcus laid out exactly what I needed to do. It aligned with what I remembered, but having it confirmed helped. When I hung up 30 minutes later, I had a clear plan. Step 1, let Jennifer and Melissa think they'd won. Step 2, document everything. Step 3, wait for them to commit the fraud. Step 4, destroy them. I walked back home slowly, rehearsing my performance. I needed them to believe I'd caved. It wouldn't be hard. In my first life, I'd always caved eventually. Jennifer was waiting in the living room when I walked in, her eyes red from crying. Melissa sat beside her on the couch, arms crossed. David, Jennifer said, her voice thick with emotion. I'm sorry I called you selfish. I know you've sacrificed so much. I want the best for Melissa, for our family. Our family. She'd never included me in that definition, not really. I know, I said quietly. I sat down in the armchair across from them. I've been thinking. And, Jennifer leaned forward hopefully, I want to see Melissa succeed. I do. But I need something in return. Jennifer's eyes narrowed slightly. What? A post-nup agreement. If I transfer my GI Bill to Melissa, I want a legal guarantee that this marriage is solid. that we're committed, that I'm not just... I let my voice break slightly, that I'm not just being used. It was a beautiful trap. In my first life, Jennifer had assured me verbally that we were solid, that she loved me, that she'd never leave me. She'd refused to sign anything, and I'd been too proud to push. This time, I knew she'd refuse, and that refusal would be my first piece of documentation. Jennifer's face went through several emotions before settling on wounded innocence. David, how can you even ask that? After 3 years of marriage, you want me to sign a contract saying I love you? That's not how love works. It's how protection works, I said. I'm putting my future on the line. I just want some security. This is ridiculous, Melissa said. You're making this about you when it should be about my education. I looked at her, really looked at her. Melissa, do you think I owe you this? She blinked, surprised by the direct question. Yes. I mean, you're my stepdad. That's what family does. And what have you done for me? As family? Her mouth opened and closed. Jennifer jumped in. David, that's not fair. She's just a kid. She's 19, old enough to vote, old enough to serve in the military like I did, old enough to take responsibility. I kept my voice level. I'm not saying no. I'm saying I need to protect myself. If you both think that's unreasonable, then maybe we need to reconsider what kind of family this is. I stood up and headed toward the bedroom. I'm tired. Let's discuss this tomorrow when everyone's had time to think. I closed the door behind me and immediately pulled out my phone to make notes about the conversation. Everything they'd said, everything I'd said, time, date, witnesses present. Through the door, I heard Jennifer and Melissa talking in low, angry voices. I couldn't make out words, but I didn't need to. I knew from my first life how this would play out. They'd work on me. They'd love bomb me, guilt trip me, wear me down. And eventually, I'd sign the transfer papers just to make the fighting stop. Except this time, I'd be recording everything. The next morning, I woke to the smell of bacon. Jennifer never made breakfast. I shuffled into the kitchen to find a full spread: eggs, bacon, pancakes, fresh coffee. Morning, honey, Jennifer said brightly, kissing my cheek. She was wearing my favorite dress. I thought we could start the day right. Melissa even managed a small smile. Morning, David. I sat down, playing the role of the exhausted husband who just wanted peace. This looks great, thank you. I've been thinking about what you said, Jennifer began, sitting down across from me. And you're right, you deserve security. I was being emotional yesterday. My heart rate didn't change. I knew this tactic. Okay. So I talked to my mom this morning, and she suggested a compromise. What if, instead of a post-nup, we set up a family trust or something? Something that shows we're all committed to each other? A family trust. Brilliant. A legal structure she could control, that would mean nothing. That would cost me money to set up with a lawyer. But I'd still end up transferring the benefits with no real protection. That's an interesting idea, I said carefully. Let me think about it. There's a deadline, though, Melissa interjected. Stanford's financial aid office needs confirmation by April 1st. That's only 2 weeks. Of course there was a deadline. There was always a deadline with these two. I understand. I'll give you an answer by the end of this week. I took a bite of pancake. These are really good, Jen. She beamed. I'm glad you like them. The week that followed was a masterclass in manipulation. Jennifer was suddenly the perfect wife, attentive, affectionate, supportive. She bought me a new massage cushion for my back. She made my favorite meals. She initiated sex for the first time in months. Melissa even cleaned the garage without being asked, an unprecedented event. And I documented all of it. I set up a digital journal, encrypted and backed up to cloud storage Jennifer didn't know about. I recorded conversations with my phone in my pocket, legal in Colorado, a one-party consent state. I screenshotted every text message. I also quietly made some other arrangements. I opened a new bank account at a different bank, one Jennifer didn't know about. I had my disability check and my paycheck from my construction job split between the old account and the new one. Just enough in the old account to seem normal, the rest squirreled away. I contacted a divorce attorney for consultation, just to understand my options. In my first life, Jennifer had blindsided me with divorce papers. This time, I'd be ready. And I reached out to Sarah Chen at the VA Office of Inspector General. Miss Chen, my name is David Torres. I'm a Marine Corps veteran, and I have reason to believe someone may be attempting to fraudulently use transferred GI Bill benefits. What kind of fraud are we talking about, Mr. Torres? My wife is pressuring me to transfer my benefits to her daughter, who I believe is not eligible. I think they're planning to falsify documents. Have they committed fraud yet? Not yet. But I've been documenting their attempts to coerce me, and I wanted to create a record before anything official happens. That's very prudent, Mr. Torres. Here's what I need you to do. By Friday, I had everything in place. I walked into the kitchen where Jennifer and Melissa were waiting. I've made a decision, I said. They both looked up eagerly. I'm going to transfer the benefits to Melissa. Jennifer's face lit up. Melissa actually squealed and jumped up to hug me. I stood stiffly in her embrace, feeling nothing. But, I continued, and they both froze. I want that family trust set up first, and I want it in writing that if Jennifer and I divorce within the next 5 years, I get reimbursed for the monetary value of the benefits. Jennifer's smile tightened. David, we're not going to divorce. Why do you keep bringing that up? Because I need protection. Those are my terms. If you won't agree, then no transfer. I watched them exchange a glance. They were calculating. The GI Bill was worth roughly $100,000 in benefits for a school like Stanford. Could they get away with promising to reimburse me and then finding a loophole? Fine, Jennifer said finally. We'll set up the trust. I'll call a lawyer Monday. Good. Once the trust is established and the divorce clause is in writing, I'll start the transfer paperwork. I didn't tell them I'd never actually complete the transfer. I'd start it, let them think it was happening, and then pull the plug at the last possible moment. But first, I needed them to commit to the fraud in writing. Jennifer called her lawyer Monday morning. His name was Richard Brennan, and I remembered him from my first life, a sleazy divorce attorney who'd helped Jennifer clean me out. Hearing his voice on speakerphone made my jaw clench, but I kept my expression neutral. So, you want to set up a family trust, Richard was saying. That's going to cost around $3,000 in legal fees, plus you'll need to fund the trust with some assets. I watched Jennifer's face fall. She hadn't expected it to be expensive. And this divorce clause David wants? That's essentially a post-nuptial agreement, which is a separate document and would be another $2,500. That's ridiculous, Jennifer said. Can't we just write something up ourselves? You could, but it wouldn't be legally binding without proper execution and notarization. And honestly, Mrs. Torres, if you're planning to divorce your husband within 5 years, he should probably know that now. Jennifer's face flushed. I'm not planning to divorce him. He's just being paranoid. Then the agreement should be no problem, Richard said smoothly. It's just insurance. After the call ended, Jennifer turned to me. David, this is getting expensive. Can't you just trust me? Can't you just sign the agreement? I countered. If you're not planning to leave me, it costs you nothing. We stared at each other. Finally, she looked away. Fine, we'll do the post-nup, but you're paying for it. Half, I said. We'll split the cost. It protects both of us. She agreed through gritted teeth. Over the next 2 weeks, I watched Jennifer grow increasingly resentful. The loving wife act disappeared. She started making passive-aggressive comments about my disability, my job, my worth as a husband. Melissa went back to ignoring me, but they both kept pushing for the benefits transfer. The problem was the $2,500 for the post-nup. Jennifer didn't want to spend it. She kept suggesting alternatives. A handshake agreement, a simple letter, a verbal promise. I refused every alternative, and I documented every refusal. Finally, on March 30th, the day before Melissa's supposed deadline, Jennifer made her move. I came home from work to find her crying at the kitchen table, Melissa beside her, also in tears. What's wrong? I asked, though I knew exactly what was coming. The deadline is tomorrow, Jennifer sobbed. We've run out of time. If you don't submit the transfer paperwork today, Melissa loses Stanford, all because you insisted on this stupid legal agreement. I told you the terms 2 weeks ago, I said. You chose not to meet them. We couldn't afford it, Jennifer shouted. You know we couldn't afford $2,500 for some paranoid contract. Then you couldn't afford Stanford, I replied calmly. Melissa stood up, her face contorted with rage. You're really going to do this? You're really going to ruin my entire future because of your trust issues? My trust issues? I laughed bitter. You've spent 3 years treating me like I don't exist. Your mother married me for benefits. And now you want me to give up my future for yours with no protection, and I'm the one with issues? You're a bitter, broken-down soldier who never did anything with his life, Melissa screamed. My mom settled for you because she felt sorry for you. And this is how you repay her? By sabotaging me? There it was. The truth I'd always suspected, but she'd never admitted in my first life. Jennifer gasped. Melissa, that's not... No, let her finish, I said quietly. I want to hear it all. Melissa was crying now, but her voice was vicious. You're nothing. You're a disabled loser who can barely work, who wakes up screaming from nightmares, who limps around feeling sorry for himself. My mom deserves better. I deserve better. And when she divorces you, and she will, you'll die alone with nothing, just like you deserve. The kitchen went silent. Jennifer looked horrified. Melissa, go to your room, now. Why? It's true. But Melissa stormed out anyway, slamming her door. Jennifer turned to me, her face pale. David, she didn't mean... Yes, she did. I pulled out my phone, stopped the recording app, and showed her the screen. And now I have it documented. Her eyes went wide. You recorded that? I recorded everything, every conversation where you and Melissa tried to manipulate me, every text message, every lie. I felt calm, cold, utterly in control. You want my GI Bill? Fine, but we're doing it my way now. What does that mean? It means you're going to sign a post-nuptial agreement tonight, or I'm filing for divorce tomorrow and submitting every single recording to the VA Office of Inspector General. You can't? I absolutely can. I've already consulted with them. What you and Melissa have been planning is fraud, Jennifer. Lying about dependency status, forging signatures, coercion, it's all documented. I stepped closer to her. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign a post-nup that protects me completely. Then I'll transfer the benefits. Or you can refuse. And I blow this whole thing up right now. Your choice. Jennifer was shaking. David, please. 20 minutes. That's how long you have to decide. I walked into my bedroom and locked the door. My hands were trembling now, adrenaline flooding my system. I'd gone off script. In my original plan, I was going to let them commit the fraud and then report it afterward. But Melissa's words had changed something in me. I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of thinking they'd won, even for a moment. My phone buzzed. Marcus Webb, got your message. Draft post-nup is ready. Want me to come over? I'd texted him an hour ago, anticipating this moment. Yes. Now. 40 minutes later, Marcus arrived with papers. Jennifer met him at the door, her face a mask of forced politeness. Mrs. Torres, I'm Marcus Webb. I've prepared a post-nuptial agreement per your husband's instructions. We sat at the kitchen table, me, Jennifer, and Marcus. Melissa stayed in her room. This is pretty straightforward, Marcus explained. It specifies that if you divorce within 5 years of signing, David retains all assets he brought into the marriage, plus reimbursement, for the full value of the GI Bill benefits transferred to your daughter. Additionally, you waive any claim to his disability compensation, his military pension when he's eligible, and his VA benefits. Jennifer's face went white as she read, This is insane. This leaves me with nothing if we divorce. It leaves you with what you brought to the marriage, Marcus corrected. Your car, your personal belongings, your retirement account. David keeps what he brought. I can't sign this. Then don't, I said, and explain to Melissa why she's not going to Stanford. Jennifer looked at me with pure hatred. You bastard. Sign it or don't. I don't care anymore. She picked up the pen. Her hand shook as she signed her name. Marcus notarized it on the spot. Congratulations, Marcus said, packing up his papers. You're now legally protected, David. After Marcus left, Jennifer went to Melissa's room. I heard shouting, crying, accusations. I didn't care, and I sat down at my computer and began the GI Bill transfer paperwork. I filled out every form carefully, accurately, Honestly. I uploaded all the required documentation, and then I sent a copy of everything, the transfer request, the post-nup, all my recordings, to Sarah Chen at the VA OIG. Ms. Chen, as we discussed, here is documentation of the attempted fraud. I'm submitting the transfer paperwork as evidence. I will be withdrawing it before final approval. Please advise on next steps. Her response came within an hour. Mr. Torres, thank you for this documentation. Based on what you've provided, we're opening an investigation. Do not withdraw the paperwork yet. We need to see if they'll proceed with fraudulent claims. I'll be in touch. I sat back, staring at the screen. The trap was set. Now I just had to wait. The next 2 months were the strangest of my life. Or lives, I suppose. Jennifer was coldly polite, going through the motions of being my wife, but clearly counting days until the 5-year post-nup window closed. Melissa left for Stanford in August without saying goodbye to me. I went to my construction job, I came home, I documented everything, and I waited for the VA investigation to progress. In September, I got an email from Stanford's financial aid office. There was a problem with Melissa's benefits verification. Could Jennifer and I come in for a meeting? I forwarded the email to Sarah Chen. Her response, perfect. Attend the meeting, record everything. Don't let them know you're cooperating with our investigation. Jennifer was panicking. What's this about? The benefits were approved. I don't know, I lied. Maybe routine verification. The meeting was scheduled for September 15th. Jennifer insisted we both take off work and fly to Palo Alto. On the plane, she grilled me. Did you say something to them? Did you report something? No, Jennifer. I transferred the benefits just like you wanted. Then why are they questioning it? Routine audit, maybe? I shrugged. It's the VA. They're probably just covering their asses. At Stanford, we met with a financial aid officer named Mrs. Peterson and a VA representative named John Morales. They sat across from us in a small conference room, their faces professionally neutral. Thank you for coming, Mrs. Peterson began. We've received some questions from the VA about Melissa Torres's benefit eligibility. We need to clarify a few things. Of course, Jennifer said, her voice steady. Whatever you need. John Morales pulled out a file. Mrs. Torres, on Melissa's dependency verification form, you indicated that Mr. David Torres is Melissa's biological father. Is that correct? I saw Jennifer's face go pale. There might have been a mistake in the paperwork. David is her stepfather. So you knowingly provided false information on a federal form? No. It was an honest mistake. The form was confusing. Mrs. Torres, the form very clearly asks for biological parent information. Morales pulled out another document. We also have a FAFSA form where Melissa claimed David Torres as her biological father to increase her benefit eligibility. That's fraud. Jennifer grabbed my hand under the table. David, tell them it was a mistake. I pulled my hand away. I can't do that, Jennifer, because it wasn't a mistake. She stared at me. What? I looked at Morales. I've been cooperating with the VA Office of Inspector General. I have documentation of Mrs. Torres and her daughter planning this fraud. I have recordings of them discussing falsifying dependency status. I have text messages. I have everything. Jennifer stood up so fast her chair fell backward. You son of a bitch. Sit down, Mrs. Torres, Morales said firmly. We're not done here. I'm not sitting here and listening to Yes, you are. Or we'll have campus police escort you out, and you can explain to your daughter why she's being expelled for benefits fraud. Jennifer sat down slowly, her face ashen. The meeting lasted 2 hours. They went through every document, every form, every claim. Jennifer tried to lie, tried to backtrack, tried to blame confusion and mistakes. But I had recordings that proved she knew exactly what she was doing. Finally, Mrs. Peterson spoke. Mrs. Torres, Mr. Torres, here's where we are. Based on this evidence, Melissa Torres has received approximately $45,000 in fraudulent benefits. Stanford will be expelling her effective immediately and pursuing repayment of those funds. The VA will be conducting a criminal investigation into benefits fraud. Jennifer was crying now. Please, you can't do this. Melissa didn't know. Melissa signed the forms, Mrs. Torres. She's 19 years old. She's legally responsible. Morales closed his file. You're both looking at federal charges. Mr. Torres, you're free to go. We'll be in touch if we need additional information. I stood up. Jennifer grabbed my arm. David, please, don't do this. We can fix this. I'll sign whatever you want. You already signed what I wanted, I said quietly. The postnup. Which means when you divorce me, and you will, you get nothing. Not my disability, not my pension, nothing. And now you get to pay back $45,000 plus legal fees. Enjoy Stanford. I walked out of the conference room and didn't look back. 3 weeks later, Melissa was officially expelled. The fraud investigation expanded when the VA discovered Jennifer had also been claiming me as Melissa's biological father to collect additional military dependent benefits, another $15,000 in fraudulent claims. Jennifer filed for divorce in November, exactly 7 months after signing the postnup. Per the agreement, she got her car and her personal belongings. I kept the house, my disability, my pension, everything. She also got federal charges for benefits fraud. So did Melissa. I followed the case through court documents. Jennifer pleaded guilty in exchange for a reduced sentence, 2 years probation, restitution of $60,000, and a permanent ban from federal benefits. Melissa got the same deal but had to withdraw her college applications to every school. No institution would accept her with a federal fraud conviction. I saw Jennifer one last time at the final divorce hearing. She looked 10 years older, her carefully maintained appearance cracked. She didn't speak to me, didn't even look at me. The judge granted the divorce. We were done. I walked out of the courthouse into the Denver sunshine. It was March 2020 now, exactly 1 year since I'd woken up in this second chance. COVID would hit soon. I knew because I'd lived through it already. But this time I was prepared. This time I had savings, a plan, a future. I enrolled at University of Colorado in the fall, using my GI Bill exactly as I'd intended. I studied mechanical engineering, my back still hurt, my PTSD still flared, but I had the time and resources to manage both. I graduated in 2024 with a degree and job offers from 3 different aerospace companies. I chose Lockheed Martin working on satellite systems. I never remarried, didn't need to. I had friends from school, from work, from the VA support group. I traveled, Japan, Germany, New Zealand, all the places I'd wanted to see but couldn't afford in my first life. I bought a small house in Boulder with a workshop in the garage where I built model rockets with the neighborhood kids. I mentored young veterans, helping them navigate the VA system and avoid the pitfalls I'd fallen into. I learned to paint. I adopted a dog, a German shepherd named Atlas. I hiked 14ers when my back allowed it. I lived. In 2028, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line said, "You destroyed my life." It was from Melissa. I almost deleted it without reading, but curiosity won. David, I know you probably don't care, but I want you to know what you did to me. I'm 28 years old and working retail at Target because no college will accept me. I had to move back in with my mom, who blames me for everything and drinks herself to sleep every night. I lost my friends, my reputation, my future. Was it worth it, getting your revenge? Did it make you feel good to ruin 2 lives over some stupid benefits? I hope you're happy. I hope every day you live with what you did to us. Melissa, I read it twice. Then I wrote back. Melissa, you didn't lose your future over some stupid benefits. You lost it because you committed federal fraud. You and your mother conspired to steal money from the VA. Money meant for veterans who actually earned it through service and sacrifice. I didn't destroy your life. You destroyed it yourself when you called me a bitter, broken-down soldier and said I deserved to die alone with nothing. You destroyed it when you laughed about me at parties and called me your mom's meal ticket. Yes, I know about that. I know everything. You had every opportunity to do this honestly. You could have applied for scholarships. You could have worked part-time. You could have gone to a less expensive school. Instead, you chose to defraud the government and use a disabled veteran. I'm not sorry for protecting myself. I'm not sorry for reporting the fraud. And I'm not sorry that you faced consequences for your actions. You want to know if I'm happy? Yes. I graduated with an engineering degree. I have a good job, good friends, a good life. I'm exactly where I wanted to be. You could have had that too if you'd earned it, honestly. Don't contact me again. David. I hit send and blocked her email. That night, I sat on my deck watching the sun set over the Flatirons, Atlas at my feet. I thought about my first life, the pain, the betrayal, the slow death in a VA hospital. I thought about this life, the one I'd fought for, the one I'd protected. I'd been given an impossible gift, a second chance. And I'd used it not for wealth or fame, but for something simpler. Dignity, self-respect, the life I'd earned. The next morning, I woke up and went to work on satellite guidance systems. I had lunch with my friend Marcus, who'd become one of my closest confidants. I went to therapy to work on my PTSD. I walked Atlas around the neighborhood. I lived normally, quietly, honestly, no drama, no revenge plots, no grand gestures, and just life. The life Jennifer and Melissa had tried to steal from me, and it was enough. On March 15th, 2029, exactly 10 years since I'd woken up in my second chance, I received a letter from the VA. It was a commendation for my cooperation in the benefits fraud investigation. My case had led to the discovery of a larger fraud ring involving multiple families scamming the GI Bill transfer system. The VA had recovered over $2 million in fraudulent claims. They wanted to interview me for a training video to help other veterans recognize and report fraud. I agreed. 6 months later, I sat in front of a camera at the Denver VA Medical Center and told my story. Not the rebirth part, that stayed secret, but everything else. How I'd been manipulated, how I'd documented the fraud, how I'd protected myself. The most important thing, I told the camera, is knowing your worth. You earned those benefits. You served your country. You don't owe them to anyone who didn't earn them themselves. And if someone tries to take them from you through fraud or coercion, document everything and report it. The VA will protect you, but you have to protect yourself first. The video was published on the VA website and shown at veteran benefit briefings across the country. I got emails from other veterans who'd been in similar situations, who'd stood up for themselves because of my story. I saved every one of those emails in a folder labeled Worth It. One day in 2031, I was at a coffee shop near my office when I saw Jennifer. She was standing in line ahead of me, grayer than I remembered, wearing a Target employee vest. She didn't notice me at first, focused on her phone. When she reached the counter to order, she pulled out a worn debit card. It was declined. She tried another, also declined. The barista looked uncomfortable. "I'm sorry," the barista said. "Do you have cash?" Jennifer's face flushed. "No, just cancel it. Never mind." She turned to leave and saw me. Our eyes met. For a long moment, we just stared at each other. I saw the decade of consequences written on her face. The lines, the exhaustion, the defeat. I wondered what she saw on mine. Probably success, peace, the life she'd tried to steal. "David," she said finally, her voice small. "Jennifer, you look good." "Thank you." She hesitated, like she wanted to say more. Maybe an apology. Maybe a justification. Maybe just another manipulation. I didn't give her the chance. I stepped past her to the counter. "I'll have a large black coffee," I told the barista. Then, on impulse, "And whatever she was ordering, put it on my tab." The barista nodded. Jennifer stared at me. "Why?" she asked. I looked at her directly. "Because I can afford to be generous. Because I won. Because I'm not angry anymore." I picked up my coffee. "Take care of yourself, Jennifer." I walked out of the coffee shop and didn't look back. That night, I realized that was the moment I'd truly moved on. Not when the fraud investigation closed. Not when the divorce was finalized. Not even when I'd graduated or gotten my dream job. The moment I could buy my abuser a coffee without feeling anything but mild pity, that was freedom. I called Marcus to tell him about it. He laughed. "You're a better man than me. I'd have let her card decline. 5 years ago, I would have too. But I don't need that anymore. She's already living her punishment. I don't need to add to it. Look at you all enlightened and shit." I had a good teacher. Marcus had been instrumental in my recovery, in my growth. "How's the new practice?" He'd opened his own veterans law firm 2 years ago, focusing on benefits and disability claims. "Busy. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something. I'm thinking about expanding, hiring another paralegal. You know anyone?" "I might. There's a kid in my mentoring group, just got out of the Army. Smart, motivated, passionate about helping other vets. Let me connect you two. We talked for another hour about business, life, the upcoming hiking trip we'd planned. When I hung up, I felt that deep satisfaction that comes from genuine friendship, genuine purpose. I looked around my house. Photos on the walls from my travels, my engineering degree framed above my desk. Atlas asleep on his dog bed, model rockets on shelves. A life built on my own terms with my own effort, using the benefits I'd earned. I said that this was what Jennifer and Melissa had tried to take from me. Not just the GI Bill money, but the opportunity, the dignity, the future. And this was what I'd fought to protect. Not with violence, not with cruelty, but with documentation, patience, and the law. I'd won by refusing to be a victim, by knowing my worth, by standing up for myself even when it was hard, even when they cried and guilted and manipulated. I'd won by choosing myself. That night, I slept without nightmares for the first time in years. No explosions. No Jennifer's voice telling me I was worthless. No Melissa's laughter calling me a meal ticket. Just peace. In my first life, I died at 47, broken and alone. In this life, at 48, I was thriving. Healthy, successful, surrounded by people who valued me. I didn't know why I'd been given this second chance. Some cosmic accident, some glitch in reality, some force beyond my understanding. But I knew what I'd done with it. I'd saved myself. And in doing so, I'd helped save others. The veterans who'd watched my VA video, who'd learned to protect themselves, who'd found the courage to say no to their own Jennifers and Melissas. That was legacy enough. The investigation into the broader GI Bill fraud ring continued for years. It turned out Jennifer and Melissa had been part of a network of people exploiting veterans. Life coaches who taught military spouses how to maximize benefits, lawyers who specialized in helping non-eligible dependents falsify paperwork, even VA employees who took bribes to approve fraudulent claims. My cooperation had opened that entire can of worms. Dozens of people were charged, hundreds of fraudulent claims were reversed, millions of dollars were recovered. The VA reformed their transfer process, adding additional verification steps, making it harder to commit fraud. They created better protections for veterans being coerced by family members. I'd done that. Not intentionally, I'd just been trying to protect myself. But the ripple effects had changed the system. In 2033, I was invited to speak at a congressional hearing on veterans' benefits fraud. I sat at a long table in front of cameras and politicians and told my story again. The problem, I said, isn't just the fraud itself. It's the underlying assumption that veterans should sacrifice endlessly, that our benefits exist to be given away to others, that saying no makes us selfish. We need to change that culture. We need to teach veterans that their benefits are theirs, that protecting themselves isn't selfish, it's necessary. A senator from Colorado nodded. Mr. Torres, your case led to significant reforms. But what would you say to veterans currently facing similar pressure from family members? I thought about my first life, about caving to Jennifer's demands because I didn't think I deserved better, about dying alone because I'd given everything away. I'd say, you earned this, you served, you sacrificed, and you don't owe your benefits to anyone who didn't earn them alongside you. If someone loves you, they won't ask you to sacrifice your future for theirs. And if they do ask, if they pressure or manipulate or guilt you, document it and report it. You deserve better. You are worth more than being someone's meal ticket. The hearing room was silent. Then someone started clapping. Then another. Then the entire room erupted in applause. I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like someone who'd simply refused to be a victim. But if that inspired other people to do the same, then maybe that was heroic enough. After the hearing, a young woman approached me, maybe 25, wearing an Army veteran cap. Mr. Torres, I'm Specialist Sarah Mitchell. I just wanted to thank you. My boyfriend was pressuring me to transfer my GI Bill to him so he could finish his degree. I didn't want to, but I felt guilty. Then I saw your video. It gave me the courage to say no. We broke up, and I'm using my benefits for myself now. I'm going to nursing school. I shook her hand. I'm proud of you, Specialist. That took courage. So did what you did, she smiled. Thank you for showing us it's okay to choose ourselves. She walked away, and I stood there in the empty hearing room, thinking about all the Sarah Mitchells out there, all the veterans who'd been taught to give and give and give until there was nothing left. I'd been one of them, and now I wasn't. That was the real victory, not the fraud charges, not the money recovered, not even my own successful life. The victory was in the veterans who'd learned to say no, who'd learned their worth, who'd chosen themselves. I flew back to Denver that evening, Atlas waiting for me at home with my neighbor who'd been dog-sitting. I walked in and he jumped on me like I'd been gone for months instead of days. "Hey, buddy, miss me?" He barked and spun in circles. I laughed and took him for a walk around the neighborhood, the late summer sun warm on my face. This was my life now, simple, honest, earned. No manipulation, no fraud, no stolen futures. Just a man and his dog walking through a nice neighborhood, coming home to a house he owned, going to a job he loved, surrounded by friends who valued him. Jennifer was working retail and living with regrets. Melissa was stuck in a life she'd destroyed through her own choices. And I was free. Sometimes people ask me if I felt guilty, if I regretted reporting them, getting them charged, ruining their lives. I never did it because they'd tried to ruin mine first. They'd tried to steal my future, my dignity, my worth. They'd called me a broken-down soldier who deserved to die alone. And I'd proven them wrong in every possible way. That was justice. That was karma. That was a second chance used exactly right. I lived 20 more years in that timeline. I retired from Lockheed Martin at 65 with a full pension. I traveled to all 7 continents. I published a book about veterans benefits fraud that became required reading at VA training centers. I never remarried, but I had relationships, healthy ones, with women who valued me for who I was, not what they could get from me. I had close friends. I had purpose. When I died at 68 from a heart attack, quick, painless, in my sleep, I died in my own home, in my own bed, with Atlas lying next to me. I died having lived a full life on my own terms. My obituary mentioned my military service, my engineering career, my advocacy for veterans' rights. It didn't mention Jennifer or Melissa. They weren't part of my story anymore. They were just a challenge I'd overcome. At my funeral, Marcus gave the eulogy. David Torres was a Marine, an engineer, a friend, and a fighter. Not in the way he fought in Afghanistan, though he did that with honor, but in the way he fought for himself, for his worth, for his right to the life he'd earned. He taught a lot of us that it's not selfish to protect yourself, it's survival, and he survived, thrived, and helped countless others do the same. That's a life well lived. They buried me with full military honors. The flag was folded and given to Marcus, who donated it to the VA center where I'd volunteered for years. My estate, modest but comfortable, went to a scholarship fund for combat veterans pursuing STEM degrees. Hundreds of students would use it over the decades, getting the education I'd fought to protect for myself, and that was my legacy. Not the fraud case, not the revenge, not even the congressional testimony. My legacy was in the veterans who learned to choose themselves, who learned they were worth protecting, who learned that being used doesn't make you loved. And somewhere, in some cosmic way I'd never understand, I'd been given the chance to create that legacy. A chance to live twice, to correct my mistakes, to protect my worth. I'd used it well. If there's an afterlife, I'd like to think I woke up there the same way I'd woken up in my second chance, with clarity, purpose, and no regrets. Because I'd done it. I'd protected myself. I'd lived on my own terms. I'd won. And that, in the end, was all that mattered.